Hello and welcome. We are Bleeding Tree Gaming. I'm Amy, aka Warp Fiend, and I'm joined by.
Hello, I'm Tammy, aka the Autumn Witch.
And today we're moving on to the third part of our Faction Spotlight series where we're looking at the Necrons. Now,
Nice.
if you haven't caught any of the previous ones, we're going to give a quick rundown of the lore and some of the basics of the army for beginners, and then we're going to move on to looking at the current range, and we're going to look through all of the models that are currently up for sale. Well, let's get into it then, shall we?
Oh, yes.
Millions of years ago, before the creation of the younger races like man, there were the Necron tier, a race of short-lived beings from a planet with a radioactive sun. The rulers of the galaxy at that time were the mysterious Old Ones, a race so enlightened they could control reality itself, and had long ago thrown off the shackles of mortality. The Necron tier were jealous of the Old Ones for this reason, and entered into a war they could not possibly win, the conflict known as the War in Heaven. Suffering devastating losses, the Necron tier forged a desperate pact with the ancient star-devouring Catan, cosmic deities that offered them both immortality and the technology to defeat the hated Older Ones. During a process known as biotransference, the Necron tier became living machines but lost their souls and much of their personalities in the process. Now made out of metal necrodermis and equipped with some of the most terrifying technology that the galaxy has to offer, the new Necrons quickly annihilated their rivals in a brutal conflict that threatened the stability of reality itself. The Old Ones were defeated, but the cost of biotransference had been devastating. The average Necron now was merely an automaton mindlessly doing the bidding of their superiors. While their leaders and a portion of the population kept most of their original personalities, many took to modifying their bodies into horrifying living weapons. The ruling Triarch under their leader, Zarek the Silent King, sought revenge on the Catan for their trick, succeeding in splitting the cosmic gods into shards that could be contained and called upon in need. Having conquered all their enemies, but taking grievous damage in the process, the Necrons needed time to repair. Zarek foresaw the coming domination of the younger Eldari species and decided to initiate the Great Sleep, a hibernation that would last 65 million years. The entire race took to stasis pods on gigantic tomb worlds with the intention of reawakening once the age of the Eldari had drawn to a close. Only then, when their full power and might was restored, would the Necron race reawaken to take their rightful place as rulers of the galaxy. The Silent King himself would leave the galaxy on a pilgrimage beyond the stars. Now, in the 41st millennium, the Necrons are finally reawakening, and Zarek has returned to lead them. Well, that's the faction. That's their lore. Skellybob's in space.
Classic sci-fi spin on a classic fantasy race.
Yes, they are very much the undead of the faction. They've got the kind of Tomb King's Egyptian-style flair to them, and obviously, like, with all of the trappings of sci-fi. So they were last edition's big bad guy. They've got lots of relatively new kits that are still available cheaply, particularly if you pick up if you can still get last edition starter box from a lot of local gaming stores and places. There's plenty of them around. They're introduced to the faction towards the end of second edition. They underwent many revisions. I think the first one was a Chaos Android way back in Space Crusade.
Yeah,
that was their original inspiration.
Yeah, I remember those. Those were pretty cool. I mean, they were clearly doing like a rip on like the Terminator. But,
yes.
But
it was very
since
much
then,
so.
they gave them a bit more of their own flavour as opposed to just one of the multiple minions of chaos.
Yes, yeah. There was also things that have been slightly controversial, like originally they were still slaves to the Catan. Then they retconned it so that no, they'd actually split the Catan up into shards and they controlled them. A lot of people said that kind of took a lot from the like mindless quality that they had originally, but it allowed them to kind of expand the faction a lot, I think, with certain of the characters having more free will than others and allowing them to go in different directions.
Yeah.
So they're like a durable faction with terrifyingly high-tech equipment. They use resurrection protocols to return dead models to the battlefield. Their guns tend towards flaying enemies at the molecular level or firing miniature black holes. Very, very advanced sci-fi technology. Destroyer cults modify their bodies into living weapons platforms. Flayed ones drape themselves in the skins of their prey, and they're supported by a wide array of canoptek constructs. Excuse me. So right, that's the basics of the faction. Now we move on to looking at the range. So here it is. You can see, compared to the two we've looked at so far, it is actually the smallest of the ranges. Obviously, Tyranids had been a faction much longer than Necrons. They have slightly more. And Space Marines, of course, are the ones that have everything.
Yeah, you're kind of overflowing with Space Marines.
Yeah. Because these were like the main faction last time, we've got lots of lovely new kits here. There's some absolutely fantastic pieces. The occasional older one, some ones from about 2011 that are still looking pretty damn cool. You can't really fault them.
I mean, design-wise, they're kind of like the same with Eldar, that they kind of got the aesthetic.
Yeah.
They got the aesthetic down in the space of like an edition, and
Fairly much.
it's
Yeah.
just been a case of like refining and reworking since then.
Yeah. So they've got a million character models. Just taking a few. Orican the Diviner's one of the more recent ones to get an update. And yeah, I think out of the updated ones, this is actually one of the least impressive technically, but it kind of mirrors the old model, so it's not necessarily going for that.
This was released with the 10th edition codex, wasn't it? This is one of the characters.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
You have some like absolutely more impressive ones like Illuminor Xeras, like absolutely fantastic model. This some people have done some fantastic paint jobs on it.
Yeah, he's a pretty big boy. You can like get a good sort of scaling idea with the unfortunate chappie that he's sort of prodding with his proddy stick.
Yeah. It's like a Ministorum priest, I believe.
Yeah.
Then you have the big boy, obviously, Zarek himself.
Yeah.
And this is just...
I do love a big boy. I do like a big centerpiece. I always say that, but I do like a big centerpiece in an army, and this is superb.
It is so cool, and it just makes me think of like a Final Fantasy boss with the two like things that shield it that you have to take out first. Yeah, so obviously that's one of the big characters. Now, Catan have somewhat of a mixed representation, because you have obviously the brand new last edition Void Dragon Shard, which is just one of the most like technically amazing models possible. I've built one myself. It's amazing just how all the pieces fit together so well, and it's actually got a bit more stability than you might think to it.
Yeah, it's definitely leaning into making the most out of the design process with like digital modeling. I mean, there's no way you could have got anything like this back when it was all pewter and
oh, absolutely not,
and fine cast and such.
Yeah. Compared to him, like talking of fine cast, we have the other two Catan shards, and you know they're not bad models, but they are very definitely showing their age. These are from like 1998, 2000, somewhere around then. You have the Deceiver as well. The Deceiver, he just looks kind of goofy, and it's a shame because like he is in the lore like the worst of the Catan, basically, or the most sinister of them.
Yeah, he does have like more like an Eldar type aesthetic.
there is definitely a bit of an Eldar feel to him. It would be. I think a lot of people were hoping these would get updated with the rest of the range, and instead they gave us the Void Dragon. But I hope this just means that they're saving them to, release over the next few years.
Yeah.
Definitely warranting something.
They've had their codex, so any new Necron stuff that comes out this edition will most likely be an update of an old kit than an actual new unit.
Yes, that'd be likely. They've expanded the army quite a lot recently, so it makes sense to update some of the few remaining flying cast pieces.
Yeah, but then I think that's all the updates Necrons are going to get for another decade.
So yeah, there's a lot of like infantry options in this army. Your basic is obviously the Necron Warriors.
Yes, but it's not just the Necron Warriors in the kit, is it? You get a unit of 3 Scarab bases as well.
You do, yes. So which is also its own unit.
You get 2 playable units in one box, which is really cool. Yeah,
these obviously update the old ones with the green plastic rods that everyone remembers from back in the day. And yeah, while the green plastic rods are gone, they were cool in their time, but they don't really fit with the modern aesthetic. So
I mean, there were people that went to all the effort of like sticking LEDs in them and making them glow, and I think that's really cool. But at the same time, there's no way I could do anything like that. So yeah, learn a bit of OSL and you get like the same effect.
Absolutely. So there's loads of variants on the basic kind of Necron warrior. You have the Immortals, which are like their elites, and they tend to have like bigger weapons and stuff.
Yeah.
You have the Death Marks, which are like kind of snipers, like kind of mobile scout infantry, basically.
Yeah.
Then you have the slightly bigger Triarch Praetorians and the Leech Guard, which is just basically both kind of assault elites.
Yeah.
Then you have kind of specialized stuff like the Flayed Ones, and these are just classic models, and I think they've done really well with this new resculpt.
Yeah.
I just want to stop a minute on them because they're so cool. Just the idea is they've just gone completely insane from like ages of being turned into a soulless killing machine, and now they just drape themselves in the skins of their enemies, like very fun.
They are gruesome. I mean, the previous ones looked okay, but they kind of looked like they were just wearing like leather ponchos, whereas here it's very obviously bits and pieces of people.
And I love how they've elongated the claws in these as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now the next like specialized area of Necron society is the destroyer cults. I thought I'd start with this one because originally these were Necron destroyers. Now they're Locust destroyers because they added in other types of destroyer in last edition that weren't there previously.
But you can see that in the guns they've still got those clear plastic tubes.
Yep. And these were absolutely great models. Before I got back into the hobby properly in 2015, I had a quick dalliance in like 2011. And I did paint some of these, and at the time they were absolutely fantastic. Compared to the new stuff, you can see that they're definitely not to the same level of detail.
No.
It would be nice if these got a resculpt at some point. I don't think it's the most urgent thing, but
yeah, I mean, I can imagine them doing just like a destroyer box with different build options.
Yes. So what they did do instead of updating these was they brought out this one, the new Locust Heavy Destroyer, which is basically, it goes back to the original sketches of what a destroyer should be and kind of reimagines that. And it's a shame you can't really... Unfortunately, the website doesn't have the 3D views anymore, so that's the best one you can get of the shape of the body. So
yeah, apparently GW spent millions on this new website.
Yeah. So not doing so great, but
so if they had to answer honestly, if you said why is everything so expensive, they have to say because we spent millions on a website that doesn't really work.
yes, yes. So I think this one's really cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the regular destroyers built on kind of similar lines, but yeah. Then you have now these ones were originally in the I believe 3rd edition codex as wraiths, but then the wraith got an update to be a canoptek model, and then last edition they brought out these ones that look like the original wraiths, but they're now Ophidian destroyers.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like with the Screamer Killer in Tyranids.
Yes, yes.
Where this was what it used to be. We changed the design so much that we couldn't actually give the retro version the same name.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they would like redesign and update a kind of retro model, and it'd be something like completely different in the case of the Wraith. And then obviously people still had nostalgia for the old ones, so make the old ones. And these are super cool models as well. I really love these, and in the couple of games I played with my Necron army, I did use these to great effect.
Yeah, well, you got to bring them around sometime, and I shall destroy them with any selection of Space Marines I've got.
Yes. So next up you have the Scorpek destroyers, which were the kind of special ones for the 9th edition box set.
Yeah, these actually feature quite strongly in the cinematic trailer for
yes
for the 9th edition release.
That was kind of our first showing of them, and it was, oh, what are these very cool Necrons? They are, yes, some kind of really awesome badass designs, and especially those kind of phase blades. Just beautiful models, and they come with the little plasma sight too.
Sweet. I love a unit that comes with a little friend.
Yes. So the other type of destroyer that was added is the Hexmark destroyer, and this one's like a character.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is just like a gunslinger one that's got 6 arms with 6 guns, basically.
Yeah, and all those eyes as well.
Yes.
See, it's not number of limbs that creeps me out; it's number of eyes.
I can definitely see that there's something vaguely terrifying about that face.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all the destroyers then. Now, as for vehicles, Necrons have a lot of options. From stuff like the Ghost Arc and the Doomsday Arc,
which are the same kit, just different build options.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see, it's a very highly detailed kit. I've never painted it myself, but I would suggest building that up in parts before you glue it together, because there's a lot of hard to reach recesses I can see on there. It's a very cool design, though. Of course, you have like the big boy, the classic monolith that got a redesign last edition.
Yeah.
It got like a doubling in price, so
not surprising.
Yeah,
they did have to put aside millions for the new website after all.
Yeah, you have to make some savings somewhere.
Yeah.
The detail on this is just sumptuous, and like it's a shame that you can't get the old one that was cheap but still like a huge model that looked really cool. But yeah, this is gorgeous. Just some stunning details like the Necron kind of phasing into reality there, and yeah, lots of cool stuff on that. And then there's obviously variants. Well, I say variants, but the Tesseract Vault is kind of a similar thing that could be built as the Obelisk as well, with the Transcendent Catan that's supposed to be imprisoned in one of those. Yeah,
and there's some very nice Forge World ones as well.
Yes, the Forge World ones. I was going to get into these because these are the constructs, the Canoptek things. And there's some smaller ones like the wraith that I mentioned before in our Canoptech wraiths. There's obviously the Canoptech spider, smaller ones like that. But I think the bigger Canoptech constructs are the Forge World ones, the Tomb Stalker and the Tomb Sentinel, these centipede ones, and the heavy construct.
I mean, these centipede ones don't look overly expensive for Forge World either.
No, those are fairly reasonable, and they're not tiny models. They're not massive ones, but they're like fairly sizable for the price. So
yeah,
I'd say those are pretty good deals. Although I've never put one together, and they do look like they could be quite a pain to put together.
They do, yes.
A lot of resin parts. The heavy construct is just absolutely immense.
Yeah, this is basically their Titan.
Yes, and it just towers over things on the battlefield. I don't know anyone who's ever had one of these, but I've seen the ones in Forge World, and they're pretty impressive. So
yeah, I mean, if you click on the pictures to the side, see if you can get like an actual scaling of it against something.
I don't think they give us those anymore.
Oh.
But I'd say a Space Marine would probably come up to just above that first joint.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess.
It does look cool. And it also looks like you could get some degree of posability with the limbs.
Yes, I'd imagine there is. There's a lot of ball joints in it and stuff that you could probably play around with.
I'd like model it rearing up like a praying mantis.
Yes, that would be interesting. Yeah, so apart from that, there's also a couple of flying things. There's stuff like the Tesseract Arc. That's another Forge World one, and I have actually painted one of these. I believe it was the Tesseract Arc variant. Yeah, I did one of those as a commission many years ago. Very, very cool model. And there are some non-Forge World versions of those, the Command Barge and the Annihilation Barge. I believe the one we just looked at was like an added Forge World kit on top of that. And yes, the Flying Croissant, the very famous Necron flyer.
It is a fantastic looking. Get them painted up because
I need to. Yes,
I want to see them on the battlefield.
Hopefully, I'll manage to get my Necrons playable again soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we've covered a good deal of the range. Obviously, we haven't gone into specifics on absolutely everything. Just as an overview, like some of the best places to get them, we've talked about Combat Patrol Necrons before.
Yeah, we agreed it was
Combat Patrol video.
It was an all right one. It wasn't great, but it was.
Yeah, I mean it's not bad because it has the Canoptech Doomstalker and not the Resurrection version of it.
Yeah.
Which is an expensive kit by itself. But other than that, a lot of the main models are ones that were in last edition's starter sets, in the magazines. There is so many of those out there that you could probably just go on eBay and get it cheaper than getting off the GW store. But take a look out for any of last edition's starter sets if you want to get into the army.
Yeah. And I'd also say that this is one of those factions that's only going to get the one release per edition. So if you really want the data cards, I think they are probably worth the buy.
Those data cards are fairly much going to last you till the end of the edition, and there might be some kind of additional rules that come in then, or some FAQs or stuff that affect it. But for the most part, you're going to be using the same rules. So
I mean, and even if you bought the codex instead, those same FAQs will affect the codex. So you might as well just grab the cards for them. Any faction
makes sense.
Any faction that's not going to be getting a new codex anytime soon, definitely worth getting it. The Dark Angels one, I would suggest getting the AdMech one, the Tyranid one, the Space Marine one. We know there's most likely going to be another.
There probably will be, yes, yes.
So it's probably not worth it, even though it would cover at least 2 of my armies. So, you know.
Yes.
But yeah, I do like the data cards idea, and I think for Necrons, they should also be a must-buy.
Yep. Well, we'll finish it up on Sarek here. Yep. Looking cool. Thank you very much for watching. This has been our faction spotlight. Faction spotlight, not faction focus. That's a GW one. Don't tell them we're almost just one word away from their name.
They what can they sue us with? They've blown millions on a rubbish website.
I can't think of better original titles. Okay, faction spotlight. That's what it's going to be.
What's coming up next? It's AdMech, isn't it?
Yep, we're hoping to bring AdMech to you next week, so keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah,
Tammy's got a painting video in the works at the minute as well.
Well, it's more than just a painting video. It's how to build a Valhallan Ice Warriors army for 40k 10th edition, when Games Workshop have basically discontinued the range.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that should be very cool. So look out for that one. We've been Bleeding Tree Gaming. Thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.